Hi, Maria.
Hello. Hi, everyone.
Hello again today.
Oh, thanks for this morning.
Would you like me to help you with admitting our interpreters?
Yes.
I can do that.
So I'm used, so I made you co-hosts. Can you see the list, the waiting room?
Yes, I can see the waiting room and I'm admitting the interpreters now.
Okay, fantastic.
Just when we're all, I'll need to be a host to connect them, but we've done that before. And it's all of us here now. So maybe I can ask you if you can give me host access for a short while.
Yes, of course.
Thank you very much. Hello, ladies. Hello, team interpreters. I hope you're doing well. Any questions before I connect you to your channels?
Hello, Clara. How are you? No, everything is fine, so we can be connected. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. Now the channels are connected. So I'm on the Spanish channel and Maria, can you please test it for me? Yes, it's nice hearing you. I can hear you very well. Thank you very much. And Claudia, hello. Haven't heard you for some time. How are you doing? Yes, yes, I hear you. All right. Thank you very much. So let's go to French. I'm on the French channel. Catalina, hello, good morning. Yeah, I'm doing really great. Thank you very much. I can hear you well. Thank you. And Emilia, hello. Good morning. Today is a wonderful day, and I kindly ask you, thank you. I kindly ask you, can you test the English for me as well? Yes, I think everything works fine. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a nice session. So Maria, I'll give you the host back.
Great. Thanks so much.
We're set here. It was faster than this morning. Is there anything else I can do for you?
I think we're set.
Great, thank you.
Sarah, do you have anything to add?
No, just that I allowed my other self to record and that seems to be working, so that's good. Just waiting for the other recorder, and then on my side it's all good. And it's already recording. Maybe you want to pause it, or maybe you want to pause it for now and resume it.
Can you do it?
Yes, of course.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the UN Water Integrated Monitoring Initiative for SDG 6, I'd like to welcome all of you to the kickoff webinar for the 2023 data drive. We'd like to wait another minute or so just so people can join us, but while we're waiting, I thought I'd just run through a few practicalities. You can see here on your screen. So this meeting is being run as a meeting rather than a webinar, which means that everyone who's joining will have the ability to unmute themselves and to turn on their videos, which we think makes for a more collaborative experience. But the first thing we'd ask that you do is to activate the interpretation, because this meeting is being translated simultaneously into French and Spanish in addition to English. So you need to go to the bottom of your screen, click on the interpretation button, and then choose your language. Even if you are an English speaker, you should choose the English track, because we may be having some discussion or questions in French or Spanish. During the session, I encourage you to turn on your video camera so that we can all see each other. We're one community of friends here. And also check your name, because we'd like to know which country you're coming from or which organization you're coming from. So edit your name to add that next to you. During the meeting, you'll have a chance to post questions or comments in the chat. And also, I would encourage you to just present yourself in the chat. We will have too many people here to actually do a tour de table of introduction. So this is your chance to present yourself in the chat. During the question and answer, if you want to ask a question, just raise your hand by pushing the button, and you need to turn on your video and microphone. And also, we will be doing a couple of quick polls during this meeting, just as a bit of an icebreaker. So I do encourage you to vote in those polls. And finally, do remember to mute your microphone when you're not speaking. With that, then, I'd like to hand over the floor for the welcome and introduction to Stuart Crane, who is our colleague from UNEP. Stuart, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Will. And good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to everyone. As Will said, my name is Stuart Crane. I work with UNEP's freshwater team. And on behalf of all the UN colleagues present here today, working on SDG 6, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to everyone that's joining us today for this 2023 Data Drive Kickoff webinar. So let me please welcome all of our SDG 6 overall focal points, as well as our SDG 6 indicator specific focal points, and any NSO contacts, and anyone and everyone else that's been able to join us for this kickoff webinar. The 2023 Data Drive is part of the UN Water Integrated Monitoring Initiative for SDG 6. That's to ensure the availability and the sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And it involves countries collecting and reporting data on SDG 6 indicators to UN custodian agencies and coordinated by UN Water. And as many of you will already know, 2023 is a very big year for water, and a lot has already happened, and there is lots still to come. In March this year, we had the 2023 UN Water Conference, where we saw UN member states come together to prioritize water and set in motion the Water Action Agenda. And we've other high-level conferences now on the near horizon to further promote the role and value of water and progress towards the achievement of SDG 6 targets. In July, we're going to have an in-depth review of Goal 6 on the progress made towards the Goal 6 targets at the high-level political forum in New York. And then shortly after that, in September, we're going to have the 2023 SDG Summit, also then followed by the Climate COP in November. So the UN Water Conference, the HLPF, the SDG Summit are really giving huge political focus on achieving water and sanitation for all throughout this entire year. And these events are seeking to accelerate country achievement towards SDG 6 by taking stock of progress to date, as well as identifying where we're lagging behind. And it's at these global high-level events that your data are used at the global level. Current status on some of the indicator data is showing that we need a fourfold increase in progress in order to meet some targets. This is why we need your data and your action towards reaching the targets. And indeed, the reason we're having this webinar is to make you all aware that the data drives are now happening, and therefore to encourage your active participation in the monitoring and reporting process so that together we can advance monitoring and reporting across all of the Goal 6 indicators. So 8 years into the SDG process and following the first 2 global data drives, the first in 2017, the second in 2020, we're now at the 3rd global data monitoring and reporting cycle, and we really need a big push at the country level because we still need to close existing data gaps that remain for several indicators. And we also need to generate the necessary data trends that inform on progress towards the Goal 6 targets. And you'll hear a few more statistics shortly, but it's worth noting that on average, countries have data on 8.5 out of the 12 SDG 6 indicators. So this represents a major improvement compared to earlier years, but also a significant knowledge gap remains. And that's why I want to bring you together for this Data Drive launch webinar to inform you of what's happening and to motivate you to engage. So today you're going to be hearing from colleagues at UN Water as well as the custodian agencies, and we're all working together to support you, our member states, with your monitoring and reporting, with data compilation, with data verification, and that's all as part of the SDG 6 Integrated Monitoring Initiative. So shortly you're going to learn about the processes and the timelines for the various indicator data drives, and you can also learn exactly what support is being made available to countries for each of the global indicators. And we hope that you find this information helpful. We hope it facilitates the reporting of your national data. And once you've heard from all the custodian agencies, we want to also hear from you during the question and answer segment at the end. So please participate actively, ask questions, make comments in the chat. Thank you very much. With that, I'd like to wish you all a very good webinar, and I'd like to hand back to our moderator at UN Water. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Stuart. And so actually, before we start, we want to hear back from you or get a feeling who's in the room here. So we have a few quick polls for you. I'll just launch them, and you can. We have the first question, and it's if you have been participating in previous SDG 6 data drives. So as you heard, we were doing one in 2017 and then one in 2020. It would be good to know if you've been participating in these or if you are new. So I'll just give you a few more seconds to respond. And I'll end the poll and show you the results. And actually, it's pretty equal. Half of you have been around for a while, half of you are new, so that's nice. It's a good mix. I will then move on to the next question, and it's more focusing on data. Wait. Need to go back and stop sharing, and then I'll launch the second one. So we have one question to you, and that's about how would you rate the quality of SDG 6 data in your country? So we know that you work on different indicators. So with that as the background, Would you say that the quality is high? Is it moderate? Is it low? Or perhaps you don't know. So we will just give you a few more seconds to respond. It's great. I'm ending the poll and I will show you the results. And actually, a lot of you, 2/3, are pretty okay with the quality of your data. So I guess that's a good starting point. Perhaps we do a similar exercise in 1 year from now and see if it's changed. But anyway, thanks so much for participating. Then before we get started, we also would like to do a group photo. So if everyone could put on your video cameras, and then if I could ask everyone who's joining us from Africa, if you could put on your mic too, and you say hi. Because then you will turn.
Hi.
Hi, hi, hi.
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 Hello.
Hi. Hi.
Hi.
Great. Welcome, everyone.
Bonjour.
So that was the
Good
people.
afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
So that's the people joining us from the African region. Do we have any people from Europe here today? Would you want to put on your mic and you say hi?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi from
Hello.
from North Macedonia. Hi.
Welcome. Great to have you here.
Hello.
Hello.
And then if we move on to the Americas, do we have any people here from North and Southern America and Middle America? If you would put on your microphones and you say hi.
Hi, Maria.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
Hola.
Hola. Buen día. Hola. Buenos días. Hola.
Hola.
That's great. And I'm just worried that I've forgotten some region. So if anyone from any other region, would you mind taking the floor now? If you put on your mics. Do we have anyone else here?
Hi, from Jamaica.
Where are
Hola,
you
buen
from?
día. El Salvador,
Hi.
darles.
Bonjour.
Morning. Okay, I think we got most of you. That's great. So I will then hand over to my colleague Will with only 2 minutes delay to start the first presentation.
Thanks, Maria. And I just had an idea for a future poll. We can ask how many people are currently driving their kids to school as they do this webinar. Okay. Well, hello again to everybody. I'm going to take a few minutes now and tell you about the Integrated Monitoring Initiative and why it is that we are encouraging the collection, the monitoring and reporting of data. My name is Will Reedhead. I'm the coordinator of the Integrated Monitoring Initiative, working with UN Water and based in Geneva. Next slide, please, Maria. For starters, UN Water, I don't know how well you know us, but we're a coordination mechanism within the United Nations system. And what that means is that there are 34 different UN entities that do something related to water and sanitation. And our job is try to kind of get all this to line up and to find synergies and reduce duplication and really overall increase our impact. We also have 44 other organizations who are not in the UN, but have some sort of a global mandate related to water and sanitation. So they're also part of the UN Water members and partners family. A big part of UN Water is the monitoring and reporting work that is mandated under the Agenda 2030 as agreed by member states. Over 230 global indicators were identified by member states to monitor the Agenda 2030. And the Integrated Monitoring Initiative is focusing on the 11 of those indicators that are for SDG 6. We have, amongst the UN Water members, there are 8 of them, 8 UN agencies that are the custodians for these indicators, and that's the team that makes up the Integrated Monitoring Initiative. Our mandate, our focus is primarily on building capacity in all member states, all 193 member states, to collect and analyze and report the data on the 11 global indicators. And as you can imagine, that's quite a tall task. And we spend a lot of our time and resources on capacity building, but we also do analysis and global reporting on the data that we have, and you'll hear more about that. Next slide, please, Maria. So now let me just shift gears a little bit and just talk about the global indicators. So there are 11 of them under SDG 6. And there's kind of like 2 different sets of objectives we have for these. The first one is for use at the global level. And you probably are most familiar with this in terms of the different high-level processes and platforms that we hear of from time to time that generally talk about how badly we're doing against delivering the SDGs. Well, how do you measure badly? You measure it with about the data you have on these global indicators. So one big purpose of this is to track our progress at the global level and to be able to kind of compare across countries. And this allows us to kind of communicate areas where we're doing well and communicate areas where we're not doing well. That's at the global level. But at the same time, we recognize that all the real progress in delivering the goals is happening in the countries. It doesn't happen in New York, it happens in the countries themselves. So it's also important, and I would say it's even more important, that these global indicators in some way support national processes for how they make decisions and how they aim to achieve SDG 6 in their country. But that requires a certain amount of adapting the indicators. So we talk about disaggregation, we talk about contextualization, which is basically a way to look at these kind of generically developed global indicators through a national lens. At the same time, we don't want to forget that countries have many more of their own water and sanitation indicators, and these are as important, if not more important, for their own needs. So we want to support those as well. Next slide, please. But regardless of whether it's global level or national level, there are a number of different opportunities for us to use these global indicators. So you can see on the left side of this slide a number of the most important ones. For example, the high-level political forum, which happens every July. And note that this year, as Stuart said, there's going to be an in-depth review of SDG 6. So obviously they're interested in seeing our numbers. There's the water decade, and as you may remember, we had the first UN Water Conference in 46 years was back in March, and that was the midterm of the decade. There's different thematic platforms, for example, the Environment Assembly, the World Health Assembly, etc., which are looking through their particular theme, but they link to SDG 6. There's also other global policy processes which touch on more than one goal, for example, the Sendai Framework or the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. And then there's the development banks and other development partners who also use this data to help identify where they want to provide support. All of these are targets that we as the Integrated Monitoring Initiative have for doing outreach with our data. But at the national level, as I said, this is even more important. There's different national processes that could be using either the global indicators or similar national indicators. So for example, national target setting, policy development, strategy development, budget allocations, joint sector reviews. These are all things that need evidence to be well informed. And we want to promote ways that we can build on these global indicators for that. At the same time, there are other national level processes that are actually more outward looking. For example, voluntary national reviews, common country assessments, which are a collaboration with the UN system. And then, of course, the commitments to the Water Action Agenda, which is a new thing which was officially launched at the conference 2 months ago. These things are all best informed with good data. Next slide. Maria is going to be talking in the next presentation about the processes and how the monitoring and reporting actually works. But I can summarize quickly kind of different roles and responsibilities here. So the countries are the center of it, and it's, you know, as per the mandate of Agenda 2030, it's your job to collect and make available data for your countries and to go through your normal quality control and official approval processes. Then you have custodian agencies. So these are the agencies that make up the Integrated Monitoring Initiative and who have the official mandate to develop the methodologies that you're implementing and also to do a validation process around that and to support you. In some cases, there are regional mechanisms. For example, in Africa, there's the African Ministers' Council on Water, which has its own regional monitoring process that we link very closely with, and they aim to add value on bridging that kind of the gap between the national monitoring and the regional analysis. And then next we have, then it goes to the United Nations Statistics Division, which is where all the data ends up for all the goals. And they have a common database, and that is used to inform the high-level political forum. And then finally, there's us. So we are here to support all of this, and in particular to support member states. Next slide. Okay, this is just a quick schematic. I'm not going to get into it, but it just shows that the core of this data flow is the National Statistical System, which is composed of the line ministries, and there are many different line ministries who are involved in SDG 6, and the National Statistical Office. And to different degrees in different countries, you have inputs from civil society, the private sector, and academia. Next slide, please. Once we have the data, we have a few ways that we put it to work. So there is the UN Water SDG 6 data portal, which is where all the data we have going back many years for these 11 indicators for all countries can be found. And it's there to make data easy to access and also to encourage cross-country analysis, cross-indicator analysis, and even analysis with indicators that are not part of SDG 6. We have global publications. So we did one set following the first data drive in 2018, accompanied by a 2018 SDG 6 synthesis report. We did a second set in 2021. And now, as you know, we're getting into the 2023 data collection exercise. Next slide, please. This feeds into a number of other global processes. For example, the UN Water 2023 UN Water Conference. That's a good example, and allows us to craft, overall messages about how we are doing toward SDG 6. And you can see that in 2018. After the first data collection exercise, our main message is that we're off track. In 2021, when we started to have some data that would allow us to do some trend analysis, we would be able to see what kind of acceleration is required, and we came up with a message that we must accelerate up to 4 times the current rate to achieve the goal. And then 2023, now we'll be able to identify cases of good progress and good success, because it's not all bad news. And we're doing things that we're calling country acceleration case studies, which are analyzing the enabling conditions in a country that brought about significant progress at the national level toward one or more of the indicators. And this year, the case studies are focusing on Ghana, Singapore, and Brazil. And I think, is that the last slide? Yes, so I will stop there and hand the floor back to Maria, who will tell us more about the data drive and how it's going to work.
Yes, thanks. And hi, everyone, again. So before getting into what we're doing this year, I just wanted to take you on a look back. So as mentioned, there's been 2 rounds of data collections for all the 12 SDG 6 global indicators. The first one resulted in baselines for 8 of the indicators and the synthesis reporting in 2018. And then in 2019, 2020, when we had the second data drive, we can actually see how member state reporting has improved over time here in this chart to the right. So today, the average UN member state is actually reporting on 8.5 of the 12 indicators. And thanks to this improved availability of data, following the second round, we were also able to do trend analysis, and based on that, to assess the acceleration needs to be able to achieve the targets by 2030. I also have one map where you can see how many indicators each country is reporting on, or have been reporting on in the last 5 years. And there's a lot of green areas, and that's really great. We've seen a lot of progress. However, as you can see, there's also a lot of yellow and orange remaining, the gaps. And this is really the reason why we need to do yet another data drive. So if we look at the 2022-2023 data drive, the objectives are really to close the data gaps. And we also know that there are countries who may be able to report data, but that the data are not necessarily very robust, and it may not be representative for the whole country. So it's also about improving data quality for the countries that are reporting already. And of course, we need multiple data points to do trend analysis. And that's why we're having these frequent data drives. The data that we are collecting now will be reported in 2024, in June, July. Stakeholders in the data drive, it's all of you who's here today. So we have technical focal points for the SDG indicators on wastewater, water quality, water use and water stress, IWRM, transboundary cooperation, and ecosystems. And we also have overall focal points here, as well as the SDG contacts in the national statistical offices. And then from our side, leading this work, it's the UN custodian agencies who are working together through IMI SDG6 and also with different partners at country and regional levels. And then in terms of the process, you see this graph at the bottom of the slide. It all starts with a data request to country focal points, followed by different types of support activities from the UN. For some indicators, this work has already started, whereas other indicators will start in the next month or so. And then after countries submit data, the UN agencies are working together with the countries to validate that data. And once the countries sign off on the validated data, it will be published then in different databases. As you have noticed, there are some indicators missing from this data drive, and this is because they have already worked on this in 2022 and already completed the work. So we have data on cooperation and on local participation that was published in December in the new GLASS report. We have recently new data on domestic wastewater, and the JMP will be publishing new data on wash in households in July this year. So that's why I won't hear any more about these indicators. Then we will hear back from all the other indicators what they are doing in terms of reporting process and timeline and support. I just wanted to flag that all this information is also available on the UN Water website so that you can find it all here. And we will be sharing the link in the chat too. But yeah, before we go on, and some notes about the different types of focal points that we're speaking about. So first, we have the indicator-specific focal points, and they are the main points of contact for the UN custodian agencies, as they are the ones who are actually submitting the data. And typically, these focal points are coming from many different line ministries or institutions or sectors, depending on how water is managed in the specific country. So for example, Ministry of Environment, Agriculture, Industry, or a dedicated water ministry. Then we have the national statistical office focal points, and they are important because they are the main responsible to submit SDG data to the UN on behalf of their countries. And since there are so many different stakeholders involved, we recommend that countries identify an overall focal point for SDG 6 monitoring as well, who can keep track of all these different activities taking place in the country, and also work together with other focal points to promote coordination and collaboration. And we believe this is the first step to bring together data from the different sectors and to allow for a comprehensive analysis of how the country really is doing on SDG 6. And that would, of course, also be the starting point for any integrated policies, planning, and resource management. So our strong recommendation is to get together, that the different focal points in countries meet regularly and discuss the work. We're also providing some support to this end. So the first step is, of course, to keep everyone informed about the work, for example, through this webinar. In the same time, we're also communicating with international and regional partners to inform them about the work we're doing. And perhaps they can also participate in this work. We know that all of you rely on political support to carry out your work, and that your supervisors need to allocate time and resources for you to be able to participate and engage. Therefore, we have had the Water Chair, Mr. Hungbo, to write to all permanent missions to inform them about the data drive. And we've also drafted some key messages on the value of SDG 6 data. And we hope these resources can help you in your country to argue why it's so important, what we're doing. We have the SDG 6 data portal where you find all previously submitted data. We have some written good practices on country monitoring systems. And then we also have this focal point database. And I just wanted to show you an example of this focal point database. So we have, for each country, we have a specific country view, which is password protected, and we're sharing this with the focal points. So you can see who else is active in the country. And then in addition, in the past, we've had bilateral calls with focal points, and we have also supported the organization of webinars with all the focal points within a country. And these are activities we're happy to engage with you on request. And of course, Water, it's a coordination mechanism. So we are happy to help to connect focal points within countries, across countries, with UN agencies and other international organizations. So feel free to tap into that, or convening power, basically. I'm moving on. And before wrapping up, I just wanted to highlight a few other activities we're doing within IMI. We have one project about gender contextualization, where we are developing tools to help countries consider gender in their water policies. And it's currently being pilot tested. We also have ongoing work on water basin disaggregation, as we recognize that this is a key scale for policy and planning and management. The first step is to develop a joint map with major basins and sub-basins that can be used as a common point of reference. And we're also looking to pilot this work in a few basins where we already have good data availability. And finally, we're also looking into interlinkage analysis, hoping to combine different types of data sets and to quantitatively establish interlinkages between water and other development areas. This is challenging, but we hope that with increasing availability and quality of data, that we will be able to move forward with this, and especially at the national, subnational, and basin levels. And with that, I'll hand over to my colleagues in the agencies So Florian from UN Habitat.
Hi, everyone. Can you share the presentation? Yes, thank you. So, Florian Thévenot, I'm responsible for the 631 indicator. Next slide, please. So I thought it would be good to remind you or to explain you why there are 3 custodian agencies responsible for monitoring the 631 indicator on wastewater. It's very important to understand that WHO is providing some estimate for the household part, so for the safely treated domestic wastewater. What is doing UN Habitat is that they are only reporting the statistic reported by the government, the ministries, or the national interpolate or modify the data. We don't provide estimates. And the 3rd custodian agency is the United Nations Statistics Division, UNSD. Next slide, please. Because for monitoring this indicator, we are using 3 databases from 2 questionnaires. First one is the UNSD UNEP questionnaire on environment statistics. And the second and third one are the OECD and Eurostat questionnaire, which both have, they use the same questionnaire, but they have both a website and database. And you can see on the map on the right that the baseline record published in 21 progress report show that in 2015 there was no official information available about the total proportion of wastewater treated for 80% of the world population per part and for 95% of the world population regarding the proportion of industrial wastewater treatment. It's very difficult to get industrial wastewater status. So it's today the least populated indicator, and we need more data this year on this data drive. We will focus on the 2020 data to make the next indicator report. So again, to remind you of the former slide, it's not because you may see the value for the domestic wastewater safety treated, which is provided so that we data from total and industrial. Next slide, please. So the reporting process and timeline now, the data will be extracted from this 3 database, UNSD, OECD, Eurostat, looking for the validation of some of these data, especially from UNSD, which have more data and take more time to make data that have been collected last year. So we also built a questionnaire that we sent to all focal points in March to collect data from non-reporting countries, the countries that do not have institutionalized yet best to report as Eurostat. Start to questionnaire. So for the country, we want to understand how the 631 indicator is calculated because it's not mentioned in the questionnaire. So here you can understand and choose the different variables that you want to. So yes, line ministry and SO regulator, but Maria explained that. So the timeline September until December, we will exploit the data to publish the UNSD SDG indicator database in February and to exploit in the indicator. So please don't hesitate if you have any question. If we could add some new focal point to this database and to increase the reporting of this indicator, really important for us. Thank you very much, Maya, and I hand over to my colleague Stuart for the 6-week indicator.
That's great. Thanks very much, Florian. My name is Stuart Warner. I work for UNEP's Global Environment Monitoring System for Fresh Water, or GEMS Water. And I'd like to just present a few slides on SDG indicator 632. And this indicator is all about the quality of water in our rivers and our lakes and our aquifers. And in terms of process, the way that countries report on this indicator is by using any water quality data that they may have, and they apply it to the indicator methodology. The information created provides a kind of you can feed it into a map that shows where water quality is good, where it is not good, and also how it's changing over time. And this information is very useful and can direct management and investment decisions around water quality and water resource management. So in terms of the process, following the 2020 data drive, which was the last one, we sought feedbacks from our indicator technical focal point network. And this feedback helped to steer our work since 2020 to now. One of the key developments is our new SDG Water Quality Hub, which I'll mention again in a few minutes. So next, also, and the timeline. So the timeline, we've started inviting countries right now to report on this indicator. And then from May until September, we will be answering any queries and providing any support. And then we'll be closing the data drive in October this year. Next slide, please. So in terms of support, we have a help desk, which can be reached at sdg632@un.org. I'll put that link into the chat straight after I've finished. We also have a support platform, which is accessed through the new Water Quality Hub. And this has resources which have been translated into French, Spanish, Arabic, Russian, and Chinese. And to help countries to report on this indicator, we have a number of services which are available. The first one of which is an indicator calculation service. So normally countries don't send us their water quality data, they send us the output of their own assessment. But we can help countries to calculate the indicator. That involves simply countries sending us the data, and then we work with them on an iterative basis to calculate the indicator, and it goes back to them for review before submission. We can also help countries with setting ambient water quality targets. These are the threshold values which are used in the indicator calculation. And we can always arrange bilateral calls with countries to support them and answer any queries, or to provide any services in terms of desensitizing other colleagues into the methodology of the indicator methodology and the use of the data. And we're also planning a series of regional virtual workshops and sessions starting from later this month. Lastly, in terms of in-depth support, we have a range of capacity development courses, which are online courses that are available through our Capacity Development Centre, which are not just about the indicator, but more broadly around water quality monitoring and assessment. The next slide, please. So lastly, this last slide, it's just very important to mention that good water quality has multiple benefits across many SDGs within and outside of SDG 6. And to improve and protect water quality, it requires coordination and input from many different ministries and sectors. In the spirit of this idea of integrated water resource management, which we'll hear a little bit more about later in this webinar. And the new hub that we've developed provides this a central focal point for engagement, both nationally and internationally. It should be noted that right now, the main target audience for this hub is our technical focal point network. So it's those tasked with reporting on this indicator in their country. But as time goes on, our ambition is to add extra functionality and data sources, which may have a broader interest to others, both in the country and region and beyond. So with that, I'd like to finish, and thank you very much for your time, and I'll hand over to my colleague Patricia from FAO. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Stuart, and hello to all participants. So I'm going to talk about two indicators, SDG 641, which deals with water use efficiency, and SDG 642, which is on water stress, and both indicators are under the custodianship of FAO. And these two indicators are important because they show how countries are dealing with water scarcity, which is one of the main challenges of water. Next, please. So this slide is to present what is the process for FAO to collect all the data required for the calculation of the two indicators. So at the core of all the process, we have the figure of the Aquastat national correspondent, which has been appointed officially by countries. So far, we have 150 countries that have appointed an official Aquastat national correspondent. I would like to point out that Aquastat sends a questionnaire to the countries every year. So we do this process in an annual basis. We will send this year the questionnaires to national correspondents at the end of June or beginning of July, depending on the region. And then as a deadline for countries to submit the data, we will fix that on the 15th of September. Then we have a process of validation, which goes from September to December 2023, in which we have close contact with the national correspondents to clarify the data and make sure that the data is correct. And finally, we publish the data around February 2024, which is also when UNSD, the Statistics Division, which coordinate all the global reporting, as for the data. The data are published in several websites, in FAO Aquastat information system, but also on the UN Water SDG 6 data portal, and also in the SDG data hub of UNSC. Next, please. Yeah, this is just to show how is the Aquastat questionnaire for those who are not familiar with the questionnaire. So we usually ask data for 3 years. So this year we are asking data for 2021, 20, and 19. The questionnaire is composed out of 34 variables, of which 12 relate to the SDG indicators, are used for the calculation of the SDG indicators. We require information on the amount of water withdrawals by sector, agricultural sector, industrial, and also services, and then also by source, groundwater and surface. And we also require information on the actual irrigated surface. Next, please. Together with the Aquastat questionnaire, we provide also a calculator tool that we think is very useful for countries also, to have an automatic calculation of what would be the two indicators, and this calculation is usually automatic once you fill the sheet concerning the national data. Next, please. Yeah, in terms of support available to countries, well, we are available at this email to reply any questions from national focal points and other stakeholders on the data we collect, but also if there is any need of the clarity or from where we get the data. Also at FAO website and also IMI website, you can access a number of methodological guidelines which explains step by step what are the calculations that we do to get these two indicators. Next, please. We also organize regularly webinars and also face-to-face country workshops. For instance, we just have a workshop in Pakistan, and we usually organize these workshops according to the specific needs of the countries. We also in FAO site and also in IMI site, there are 2 online courses which explain in detail what are the data required for the calculation of these 2 indicators and what is the methodology for the calculation of the 2 indicators. Next, please. This is another online course that is very recent and is related to the environmental flow requirements. This is a variable that we need for the calculation of SDG 642, and it's a concept for which many countries still they don't have a methodology. So this is why, together with IHF Delft, we have produced an online course for giving a better understanding of what are the environmental flow requirements and what are the different methodologies to calculate that. Next, please. And then I would like to finish saying that in terms of SDG 641 and SDG 642, an Aquastat questionnaire, there is room for improvement. As I said, we sent the questionnaire to 150 countries, but we have usually a response rate of around 40%. That means 70 countries reply to the questionnaire. So we hope that with these webinars and we could improve this response rate. And please feel free to contact us for any doubt or any further clarification you may need. I would like also to highlight the central role of the Aquastat national correspondent. As you have seen in the Aquastat questionnaire, we need data coming from different ministers and institutions. So it's key that the national correspondent coordinates all these data collection among the different institutions. And that's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention. Sorry, I pass the floor now to my colleague Lisbeth from UNEP, who's going to talk about SDG 641.
Thank you very much. Yes, I'll be briefly presenting on the SDG 6 indicator 651, degree of integrated water resource management implementation, where the United Nations Environment Programme is the custodian agency. Next slide, please. So for indicator 651 on integrated water resource management, or IWRM, the main reporting instrument is an IWRM survey. It consists of around 30 questions, which cover the 4 main dimensions of IWRM. In the spirit of integrated water resource management, we encourage all countries to conduct a multi-stakeholder consultation process, which involves inputs from the relevant stakeholders in the countries. So far, we've rolled out to more than 150 countries already, and between now and the end of September, there are about 5 months for countries to conduct this consultation process to complete the survey. In October and November, we'll be conducting the standard quality assurance processes, and then the surveys will be finalized. Next slide, please. So all of the main materials and supporting materials are available on the IWRM data portal, the link which you can see here, and I'll also provide in the chat after, under the tab 2023 reporting. All the materials are available in the 6 UN languages, as well as in Portuguese. We also have a dedicated help desk at UNEP, which is available to answer any queries that you have at this email address, iwrm_sdg651@un.org. And in addition to the short monitoring guide, which you should all read if you're a 651 focal point, there are a range of optional supporting materials available. These include a stakeholder consultation manual, as well as a short online course, which takes approximately 5 hours to complete, and many other materials which you can pick and choose from depending on what the needs are in your countries. Next slide, please. We can also provide more dedicated financial and technical assistance through the SDG 6 IWM support program, which is coordinated by the Global Water Partnership, the UNEP DHI Center, and UNDP CapNet under the guidance of UNEP as custodian agency. So we can provide some financial assistance to engage a facilitator to assist with conducting these stakeholder consultations. This support is available to up to 60 countries, but we've already received more than 40 applications. So if you're interested in this financial support, please submit your interest to the email address that's on the slide as soon as possible to not miss out on this opportunity. We're also available to provide technical guidance to all countries where we make all of the materials available just without the financial support to engage a facilitator. And then finally, we can also provide logistical support to hold regional webinars or workshops to exchange experiences within the regions. Next slide, please. So given that IWM cuts across all aspects of water resources management, this is an opportunity for all the SDG 6 indicator focal points to provide a meaningful input to the various questions in the survey, and we strongly encourage this. There will be various opportunities through the process of reporting where you can participate in the consultation process, including through providing written inputs, joining online or in-person consultations, and depending on your areas of interest, you could provide inputs to all of the questions or just to some of them. So the onus here is on the 651 focal points to invite all the other indicator focal points of SDG 6 to participate in each country. And then this could also be coordinated by the overall focal points as relevant. Thank you very much. And with that, I'll hand over to Alistair from UNECE.
Thanks, Lisbeth. Yeah, I'll be presenting on behalf of UNECE 652, which measures the proportion of transboundary basin area, rivers, lakes, and aquifers with an operational arrangement for water cooperation. So UNECE and UNESCO are co-custodians for this indicator. Next slide, please. So we started the data drive with invitations to responsible ministers, went out in March, and there's a deadline of the 30th of June of this year. Various support is available to countries. We have a help desk, UNECE and UNESCO. We've run, last month we had a couple of global webinars. We've got a series of other regional workshops and some targeted online follow-up at the sub-regional level. There's a really strong focus for this third data drive around coordination. We want to make sure that there's good consistency between countries sharing the same rivers, lakes, and aquifers. We also want to build on the good experience from the last data drives where the reports have been used as an opportunity to develop dialogue between countries sharing transboundary waters where that hasn't been the case before, and use the 652 reporting as an opportunity to develop future plans on transboundary water cooperation, whether it's addressing data gaps or looking at the development, acceleration of progress on adopting operational arrangements. Next slide, please. So we have a series of materials, guidance materials available, and we'll share the link in the next slide. The template you'll find for the third reporting exercise available, step-by-step methodology, and a guide which takes you through the reporting template. But now I'll hand over to my colleague Tatiana Dmitrieva, who'll talk a little bit about a new document we have on coordination. So Tatiana, over to you.
Thank you, Alistair. I'm Tatiana Dmitrieva. I'm from UNESCO Intergovernmental Hydrological Program, and UNESCO and UNECE are co-custodians for 652. UNESCO mainly responsible for transboundary aquifers and groundwaters with a big experience in this field. And as Alistair introduced, the main focus of this third reporting exercise is on cooperation coordination, and we produced this very short 2-pager document that can be quickly read and serve as a checklist for focal points to check if how to coordinate the reporting process with the neighboring states and also at river basin level. Yes, it was based on the previous rounds of reporting, and we put there some examples from countries from successful coordination experiences. Next slide, please. And I also wanted to highlight some points for some issues for focal points when preparing the reports. For 652, it's very important for reports to be signed by competent authority at ministerial level to reflect the country official view on its transboundary water cooperation. For this reason, it's very important to clearly define a key person responsible for the report, and also for this key person to cooperate with other organizations and river basin organizations that can help to fill the report. It's also important to have access to all sources of information, the arrangements and different projects that can be attached to the report, and the website links also can be included in the report. We encourage the coordination of 652 focal points with 651 focal points, because the 652 report can provide interesting information for the questions in 651 that are related to transboundary aspects. Also, particularly for new focal points for 652, it could be important to consult previous reports that are available on the UNEC webpage, and you also can consult the reports not only from your countries but from neighboring countries for better coordination. And also we encourage focal points to submit to custodian agencies the draft reports before their formal official submission, if there are any questions or any clarifications from custodian agency or from focal points. Next slide, please. Here you can see the help desk, the emails to contact UNEC and UNESCO for support, and also the QR codes to connect to the web pages dedicated to 652, where you can download all the support material that is translated in many languages for your convenience. And also, I remind you, the deadline for reporting on 652 is the 30th of June 2023. Thank you. And I hand over to my colleague from UNEP for 661 indicator.
Thank you very much, Tatiana. And very good morning and good afternoon again to everybody on the call. This is Stuart Crane from UNEP's freshwater team. Right, so we're going to conclude this part of the webinar with freshwater ecosystems and an update on SDG 6.6.1. This indicator is unique in the SDG framework. It uses satellite-based Earth observations to monitor changes in freshwater ecosystems from space. And that's the purpose of the indicator, is to track the extent that different types of freshwater ecosystems are changing over time. Next slide, please. And indicator 661, as I mentioned, uses satellite-based Earth observations, and it's actually as of today that we're going to be launching the 661 data drive. So many of you on this call may already have an email in your inbox from which we have shared data, satellite-based data at a national level depicting different freshwater ecosystem trends. And this will be communicated out to our 661 indicator focal points for approval. And the indicator data itself covers lakes and rivers and wetlands. And the opportunity between now and June is with the indicator focal points to respond to UNEP, to our help desk, to ask any questions or raise any concerns that you may have, and we'll be very happy to try and address these and engage with you. And our technical team stands ready to support countries in this regard. And we have until, from now up until the end of July, to provide the data and engage in those questions and concerns, and then we'll try to consolidate all of those national approvals, and we'll be submitting the 661 data into the UN Statistics Division as official 661 indicator data. Next slide, please. And the main tool that we use to provide support with countries is an online geospatial data portal that's called the Freshwater Ecosystem Explorer. I would encourage all of you to go and check out this online data portal. The web address is sdg661.app. And here, countries can find all of their national data across all of the different sub-indicators. And we have data that stretches back over 22 years. We also have annual data and monthly data, and we also have basin level data, just the national data that is reported, but we also have an optional basin level data available for you. So I would encourage all of you to go online and check that out. If you have questions and concerns, we have a help desk for Indicator 661 at this email address you can see on your screen. And in addition to that help desk, we have a whole range of materials and infographics and information that's also available on the Freshwater Ecosystem Explorer. At your request, we can provide you with the full suite of 22 years worth of sub-indicator data. It's a huge amount of information should you be interested in performing a higher level of analysis. That all exists. Also available are a whole range of graphs and downloadable files and graphics, which helps you and policymakers within your country understand the data and track and see how different ecosystem changes are occurring in your country. If anyone is interested, please reach out to the help desk and request some country training. We'll be more than happy to provide a country training on the portal, and also to point you all to where the methodologies are for supporting this monitoring process. Also on the site, there's a whole range of interactive analysis, that good country case studies where we can actually see how this indicator has transformed policy in certain countries. So I'd encourage you to go and see the purpose of monitoring and reporting 661 data. And with that, I would like to hand back to my colleagues at UN Water. Thank you.
Great. Thank you to Stuart, and thank you to all of the representatives from the UN custodian agencies who just shared with us. So that brings us to the end of the presentation part of this meeting. Just a reminder, the reason that we're here and the reason that we're having this webinar is to kick off the 2023 data drive. And as we saw in the poll that Maria did at the beginning, about half of you have done this before. So you may not have too many questions about how we do things, but the other half of you are new to this. So we'd like to take this chance now to open up the floor to any questions that you may have, either generally about the process or a specific question to one of the agencies who just presented here, or any comments or feedbacks that you have on monitoring in general. Those of you who've done this before may have insights you want to share with us. We had some good discussions this morning in that regard. So we'd like to hear from you now. So if you'd like to speak, I suggest that you raise your hand and then we can call on you. Okay, I see we have one hand already from Anders Iversen from Norway. So Anders, you can unmute yourself. There you go. Go ahead and
yes,
you may speak now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm the focal point for 651. On integrated water resource management, but I actually have two questions. For 632 on water quality, of course, the countries in Europe are reporting to the European Environment Agency in Copenhagen our statistics on the Water Framework Directive, which cover to a large extent the ecological and chemical status of water. So for that, we'll probably be reusing the same statistic that we report to the EU. But I also remember maybe 2 years ago, I heard that there was like an initiative to use all the data from the European Environment Agency in Copenhagen to report for all the European countries at the same time. But I just wondered if something has happened in that regard. That was the first question. And the second one concerns 651, because I noted for some of the other indicators you have been collaborating with the OECD and the Eurostat and stuff like that. But the OECD also has this publication on how to assess water governance, which has a lot of overlap thematic with the 651. So I wondered if there has been any collaboration on that. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Anders. So those two questions are quite clearly pointed to our custodian. So maybe I could ask Stuart Warner to respond to the first one. And then Lisbeth, you can respond to the second one.
Great stuff. Thanks, Will. Thanks, Anders, very much for your question. It's a very good one. And just to say, yep, you're correct. In 2020, we ran a pilot study along with the European Environment Agency. So the plan was to reuse all of the Water Framework Directive data to save countries having to report twice. In way of update, we are engaging with, again, the European Environment Agency and the European Commission to update that pilot, because there was a couple of weaknesses in that approach that we're looking to improve upon. And we will again be rolling out that pilot study. We haven't actually contacted the European countries yet to launch the data drive. We're just waiting for the final pieces to come together on that. And then we'll be including all of that update and that information on that approach. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Stuart. And Lisbeth on 651.
Yes, thanks, Anders, for your question. In terms of overlap, of course, we know there are some overlap, but at the moment, the methodology and the survey doesn't have any inputs from the OECD work. The reason that is as well is that we're building on previous rounds of reporting to be able to actually measure progress. So the survey is based on the previous two surveys with some new additions this year to consider more questions on climate change and also gender. And then, of course, as we're promoting having stakeholder consultations and as integrated a process as possible for all countries to report this time, we feel like it's important that there's a new round and a new data drive specifically with 651 goal in mind for IWRM progress.
Great, thanks, Lisbeth. Anders, did that answer your questions?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, I see we have a question in the Q&A box, and that is from an anonymous participant. The question is basically for the 2023 data drive, what period should the data be covering? Is it up to 2023 itself or 2022? My quick answer on that is that will vary from the agencies, from indicator to indicator, and that'll be communicated as part of their outreach. But I'd like to quickly just open the floor to any of the agencies who want to speak more specifically about that.
Well, I can just say very quickly for 632, we encourage countries to use data. So for the preceding 3 years, so for 2023, we'd encourage data to be used from 2020, 21 and 22. And the idea being that by using data across those 3 years, you can then smooth out any inter-annual variation. Maybe a particularly wet year may influence water quality or a dry year. And we know as climate's changing, our weather patterns are changing. So by using data across those 3 years, it helps to smooth out any inter-annual variation. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. Anyone else want to add anything to that?
Yeah, maybe I can specify for FAO. We will be collecting data for 2019, 20, and 21. So 21 would be the last year for which we require data. Thank you.
Okay, so as you can see, those are actually two slightly different answers. So I think the point is that, and you'll see that although we are an integrated initiative where we try to walk together and communicate a common message, there will always be some differences between the agencies and between the methodologies themselves, which is necessary because the methodologies are so different. So it's best to, when you have a question like that, you'll get the answer from the agency, and all of them have help desks. You would have seen that from the presentations. I think all of them gave a link to their help desk, and that's really useful for questions like this. Okay, can I open the floor to additional questions? Well, while you're thinking, I just want to flag that this is our third data drive. As you would have seen, we did our baseline in 2018, and we got a second round in 2020. And as Maria shared, that's enabled us to get up to about 8.5 indicators out of 12 on average, and actually get some trend analysis for 5 of the indicators. So that's fantastic. But this is our third time around. It's going to get harder and harder every time because, in a sense, we've gotten the easy data, and now it's harder data. The countries that haven't reported at all, those are the ones that probably face the most challenges, whether it's a technical challenge or a political challenge. And likewise, doing it once might be one thing. Having to do an additional exercise in a country to get additional data points, it requires more resources. So we're not expecting this to be an easy year, but that's why we're here, and that's why we really want to. So please, don't hesitate to ask for help, ask questions if you have them, and just to engage with us, because we know that this is not always so easy. We also touched base on some of the other things that we're doing, like on gender disaggregation and on river basin delineation. That's also additional challenges. We think that'll add a lot of value, but we recognize that these are all things that is another step kind of up that ladder of more sophisticated monitoring, and they will all come with their own challenges. So don't hesitate to ask for help on those things. Okay, yes, not forgetting that not everyone here is an English speaker. So if you want to ask questions in French or in Spanish, don't worry, we do have the interpreters here. So don't hesitate. Yeah, I see another one has popped up in the Q&A. Okay, so this is from Ansumana. I'm sorry if I've said your name wrong. I'm Principal Scientific Officer of Water Quality Monitoring and Assessment in Gambia. As a head of laboratory, you finding a lot of constriction in data drive management. Okay, so these are some of the challenges that are faced on the technical side on water quality monitoring in the laboratory. I don't know, do our 632 colleagues have any advice related to how laboratories can be geared up to support the collection of water quality data?
Thanks very much. Thanks for the question. It's a very good question. Data management, more specifically water quality data management, is a challenge in all world regions, and that's something that came through very strongly in our feedback report that we published in 2021. And this is something that we are looking to support. We have for example, in terms of capacity development, we have a specific course, a free course, which is available on UNEP's e-learning platform on data management. That is only available in English at the moment, unfortunately. But we can provide targeted support on capacity development around data management in French if required. So please reach out to us at the 632 help desk, and we'll try to help you on that. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Okay, any more questions for us? Any comments? Anyone want to tell us how great we are and how much you like working with us? We're always happy to hear that. Okay. Well, one other point that I'd like to also flag, this is not directly related to the data drive, but some of you may have been with us back in September when in the lead up to the water conference, we had a session, a webinar, where we were talking about the water action agenda and the voluntary commitments. So if you recall, the water action agenda was the main outcome agreed at the conference, and the core of the water action agenda is commitments made by countries and other stakeholder organizations to do good things to advance SDG 6 in their countries. So we've come out of the conference, and I don't even remember what the latest number of commitments is. It's probably over 800, but there's a lot there. And at the time when we had the first webinar with the focal points, we were basically saying that you know probably better than anybody does in your country what gaps you have into delivering the SDG 6 targets, and you've got the evidence to prove it. And that puts you in a unique position to advocate to your bosses, the policymakers, to make commitments to do something to close those gaps. So that was the argument that we made before the conference, and I'm happy to say that many of you, took that to heart and did talk to your bosses, and we can see from the numbers that a lot of commitments have come out of it. And we're analyzing those commitments, and we hopefully will be able to say more and more about how those things are being implemented in the months to come. But it's not too late. The platform is still open, and you can get your policymakers to make additional commitments there, and they will be an important contribution to delivering the Agenda 2030. So even if you didn't do it at that time, you're still in a position to take the data that you have and talk to your bosses and try to get some more commitments made for your country. Okay, and actually we will paste into the chat box the address for where you can make the platform where those commitments can be made. I don't see any more questions or any more hands raised. Oh, Colin loves working with us. Thank you, Colin. So if there aren't any more interventions, oh, I do see one. Sophia, I'll be happy to give you the floor.
Bueno, buenos días o buenas tardes a todos. Acá les hablo desde Uruguay, Ministerio de Ambiente. Quería consultar en realidad porque nosotros desde 2021 ya capaz que la idea es lanzar este año un plan de cuenca sostenible enfocado en la cuenca de Santa Lucía. Todavía estamos en la construcción de los indicadores de reporting y bueno, me interesaría conocer un poco en qué proyectos están y ver si podríamos también aprovechar esta etapa de construcción para recoger los datos que ustedes entienden relevantes en estos proyectos que están trabajando o mismo que no sé, que nosotros también les podamos dar a ustedes. Gracias.
Thanks. If I understand, you're talking about a sustainable basins project in a particular basin. So actually, I guess this question could be for any of the agencies, because this reminds me of what we talked about, how we are hoping to increasingly disaggregate our data, which tends to be measured at the country level, but to disaggregate it by river basin. So I know that certain indicators amongst us have been particularly interested in that kind of that resolution. And I also guess I see links with 651, but do any of the agencies who've been involved in the river basins group want to say anything about what you would find useful from a basins project in terms of generating data?
Yeah, maybe, Will, if I
Go ahead,
can.
Patricia.
Sí, pues Sofía, muchísimas gracias por su pregunta. Y la verdad es que esa iniciativa que usted está presentando, ¿no? de las cuencas hidrológicas sostenibles va muy bien con el trabajo que la FAO está haciendo ahora en desagregar el indicador 642, nivel de estrés hídrico, y estamos trabajando con algunos países pilotos como Italia, Ruanda o Brasil en obtener información sobre el nivel de estrés hídrico, pero a nivel de cuenca hidrográfica, que da una mejor información a nivel de país del problema de estrés hídrico. Entonces, si estuvieran interesados, nosotros estaríamos encantados de trabajar con ustedes y bueno, aprovechando esta iniciativa, si pueden recopilar datos para que nos permitan calcular el indicador 642 a nivel de cuenca hídrica, pues estaríamos muy felices de colaborar con ustedes en esto. Muchas gracias.
Great. Thank you, Patricia. Stuart Warner, I saw your hand. Is that an old hand or a new hand?
New hand. I can just quickly, I can say that for SDG indicator 632, we always encourage countries to report at the river basin level. So it provides that extra information. And just to say on Uruguay and that particular river basin, we're involved in a project there which is looking at the drivers of water quality. So what's making the water quality good or not good, and that's using an Earth observation approach, and that's being run through three pilot countries at the moment. Uruguay is one of them, Jamaica, and Sierra Leone is the third one. But yeah, this idea of looking at data at the river basin level is absolutely essential. And just to say, we are working with the ministry there in Uruguay on that one. Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart. And then one final question, which came out in the chat box from Raymond in Madagascar. So he's saying that they're new to all of this, and he just wants to know kind of what's the process for the reporting. Are the indicators collecting data through Excel, or is it done online? So Raymond, I can answer that. The answer is it depends. It depends on which indicator. So I know that a number of them are still using Excel-based questionnaires or other format questionnaires. But some of them, for example, 632, are now uploading data directly through portals online. So it'll vary. It'll vary from agency to agency. And as always, if you have a question from an agency, you can reach out to their help desk. But I'd also note that if you're new, I don't know whether you're actually one of our focal points in our database. Are you a technical focal point for one of the indicators, or so if you really are if you're in that role, then I think we'd like to know so we can reach out to you, because you may not be receiving the emails. And also we have this database that my colleague Maria mentioned that we can share with you, so you can see who the other focal points are in Madagascar. So just something for you to think about there. With that, I'd like to hand over the floor now to our closing. So I'd like to give the floor back to Tatiana from UNESCO, who will say a few final thoughts for us, and then we can close this session. Tatiana, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Will, very much. Thank you, colleagues. As we conclude today's very informative and insightful webinar, we would like to express our gratitude to everyone who participated and who contributed to the discussions. We appreciate very much the dedication and the enthusiasm of all attendees who have already participated in reporting exercises, and also the newcomers. You are very welcome. And as well as the international and regional partners. Our special thanks is to presenters and moderators from Integrated Monitoring Initiative, Will and Maria, and also from UN, all custodian agencies for their informative and engaging presentations. Monitoring is very challenging work. We need more data and we need acceleration to achieve the indicators by 2030. And your expertise and commitments are the driving forces behind the success of these webinars and to the broader 2023 data drive. As we move forward, we encourage all the participants to actively engage in this 2023 data drive by collaborating with other stakeholders at different levels: local, national, subnational, regional, international. Also by sharing best practices and by using available focal point database, I would like to highlight, and also by using all the available resources and variety of supports that are also translated into many languages, as you have seen today. We have help desks open for you, webinars and workshops. We have developed many methodologies, reports, platforms, and databases. There are also online courses and different technical online tools. The objective of the collective approach of IMI SDG 6 is to enhance the effectiveness of individual efforts, to inform, to provide data of quality, to provide data that are open and accessible to policy and decision makers, to donors for their effective decisions. Some additional remarks that came out today and that I would like to highlight is better coordination, cross-sectoral and cross-indicator approach, and interlinkages to avoid overlapping, as you have seen. And also we have heard about the gender contextualization, better gender representation in waterworks, and also river basin disaggregation. Also, so please stay tuned for further updates on the 2023 data drive. As it was said in the beginning, 2023 is a very important year for water. We have assisted already to many events and more are coming. So please stay tuned and we look forward to your continuous involvement and collaboration as we work together towards the successful completion of the 2023 data drive and the achievement of SDG 6. Thank you once again and have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
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 Chao.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Gracias a todos. Adiós. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye bye.
Bye.